this is a third message for a collective who has been dealing with a crown block. Specifically, you've been dealing with a crown block. You felt like you had to, you've been scrambling for an answer, or you just have been having to think really hard to figure out a way through something. Like something's been extra challenging for you. It feels like if you haven't already had this pouring influx of channeled messages, they're coming, and this awareness and intuitive downloads or hits where you're like, that's what that meant, or that's what that was. It's coming. Now, I'm going to say there has been a collective impeding your path. Why? I'm hearing they didn't know any better is what I'm getting. Here's the thing with this. This is a collective who doesn't know its power. This collective doesn't know its power because they have had to, they do the things that they do because they had control over them. So it makes me think of that King of Swords Empress collective. Take what resonates with that. We discussed in the second reading. So go back and watch that if you missed it. But there is a collective who may be misleading. I'm getting slightly manipulative. They project a lot. Maybe you perceive them as gaslighting, but they don't realize they're doing this is what I'm getting, or they don't see it from that perspective because it's been a survival mechanism for them. They don't see their power. And your truth intimidates them, or the energy of truth and authenticity intimidates them and puts them in a place of feeling disempowered. And so they can't see things clearly. They don't see themselves. They have a distorted perception of reality. I'm going to say it sounds a little bit like narcissism, right? So for some of you, this is going to be a narcissist, but I don't want to take it there fully because narcissism, it's on a spectrum. So there's a spectrum worth of levels of how you could be receiving this type of energy. But basically, it would be someone who's in denial, someone who's lying, someone who's manipulating, someone who's blurring the lines of truth to get their way, or in their eyes to protect themselves. And it's been impeding your path because some of you guys, this energy wasn't necessarily trying to overpower you, but the way that they operate just naturally does. They don't see this about themselves. They don't see their power. If they saw this, they wouldn't, it seems like they would take action in a different direction. Like they wouldn't have even come into your path. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I think someone in this equation doesn't realize how misaligned they are because they see you as more empowered than they are, even though you see them as a slightly abusive maybe, or a manipulator. And I think that's the whole challenge in this situation. This is why this message came in with fire trucks outside, just going off in and out. The whole time I was trying to channel this message, it was such intense fire energy and heat, and this collective is kind of going through an internal madness right now, or chaos, lots of anxiety, lots of stress, lots of panic. And some of you guys are sensing this, or this is something that you have been abused by throughout your life, and it's hit a wall for you. Like you're just done with it. You're saying no to it. You're not putting up with it. You see through it, and there's more and more coming towards you as you're on your way out of that cycle. And so this, again, some would say this is covert narcissism, but again, narcissism exists on a spectrum. But this is definitely an energy that is not in its truth and trying to get into your energy or in your lane in some way, because it feels like being close to you would empower it. And it does not realize that it's harming you. And that's its intentions. It was to empower itself, not to harm you. It sees you as powerful. So there's something about this that is very challenging to your perspective, where things are not what they seem. And it comes from someone who just sees their path as a struggle, their past as a struggle. They've always had to work really hard. And I think there's parallels in that story. Like, you may be like, well, I've had to work really hard. My life has always been a struggle. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's parallels there. This energy has followed the rules in some way, or this energy has put up with things that they wish they hadn't, or things that they don't normally believe in, or don't necessarily believe in, but they felt they had to believe in them, or stand up for them, or stand in those energies. For some of you, this is matriarchal energies within the family line that abided by religious doctrinations, and it abided by institutions when it came to patriarchal beliefs in the family or in society, that they feel that they have settled in some way, or they feel overrun by, or they feel stressed out by societal norms, and meeting those norms, meeting those standards, while you kind of do your thing, and while you have gone through struggles just being the black sheep or the scapegoated. So I think this energy is very challenging, because both of you guys have had challenging paths in your own eyes, but to each other's eyes, your life seems you don't see each other clearly. You don't see how hard the other one's life is, and you see excuses. And I think that's the funny thing is the one who's followed the rules sees you as making excuses by doing things out of the norm. Well, you chose that path. Well, you did that to yourself. And you see the one who's complaining about, well, I'm tired because I followed the rules and all of this is still happening. You see that as, well, you chose that path. You chose to follow the rules and do what you didn't want to do, and not take your power into your own hands. Do you get what I'm saying? So we've got these two feminine collectives. It feels like two feminine collectives, but take what resonates, saying, my life has been really hard, but refusing to acknowledge that within each other. And so there's a lot, it's like bumper cars, a lot of blocking each other, and a lot of causing chaos and madness for no other reason than one feels envious of the other. And it's interesting, because the black sheep collective and the scapegoated ones, you guys are kind of doing your own thing. You're choosing the path away from them in some way. For some of you guys, you might be called to let go or forgive in order to create the separation, because maybe you're still fighting what has happened, betrayals and trauma and abuse and situations. But for the most part, some of you guys have been on your own or in your own lane, and these energies keep coming into your lane, and you're like, why are you doing this? We're not aligned. And it's this blame game and this blame shifting. There's definitely some abuse tactics in this situation, but it does feel like this cloud is lifting in some way. They showed me basically a funnel from the higher realms into the crown chakra, as the heavy energy cleared out, the anger cleared out. So again, some of you guys, this is a situation with someone new, and this is a situation resurfacing from the past. And some of you guys are like, why is this happening right now? Or like, what is your deal? This is their deal. It feels like both collectives are going through like some kind of emergencies or crisis or unexpected chaos and unexpected difficulties in your life. And so you're both running on high stress, challenges, just lots of anxiety, frustrations, just you feel like some of the challenges you're faced with are unnecessary, petty, exhausting. It's like external forces are exhausting your energy on purpose. And the thing is, both parties feel this way. The challenge is that one party is more selfish than the other, and the other one is gaslit into feeling more selfish than the other. I'd say the scapegoated collective has always been gaslit into be seen as selfish and erratic and irrational. And now all of a sudden, the societal norm collective is gaslighting even more, while also wanting your path, wanting different, wanting change, wanting to choose, wanting empowerment. And there is this level of, you're going to have to see what you've done. You're going to have to see through my shoes for a second here. You want this path? You're gonna have to walk in my shoes. And you're gonna have to understand that this was not easy. And just as much challenge as you've gone through following the rules despite your desires to do something else, putting that pressure on yourself, I've also had to follow a lot of challenges, face a lot of challenges back to back to back to back to back in order to break the rules to work in my favor, to work the way I want them to, or to follow my passion. It's like an artist arguing with a contractor, like someone in the corporate world, a consultant. This is like a starving artist, you know what I'm saying? Like butting heads with someone who's been in the corporate world forever. So there's that's what this message is about. And these energies coming into a clashing energy is bringing up a lot of wounds from the past and battles from the past. But like I said, one collective doesn't see clearly and the other one does, or is having to face empathy, for them in order to overcome the resistance they're internally feeling with this situation. Because again, it's just like the scapegoated collective. You guys have more power than you realize in the situation, in the sense that you've dealt with this kind of stuff your whole life. So just keep going. But something about the situation makes you very angry, or it hits at a really bad time. It's very frustrating. It's just too much. And it's like, why now? I've got way too much on my plate right now. Why now? That's what I'm getting from this collective. It's bringing up all the challenges from your past. Take a step back, because that's what this collective is pouring on you. That's the way they operate. They operate through projection and gaslighting. Because that's the world they chose. These are childhood wounds erupting in this collective because their inner child's coming out and saying, I don't want to be here anymore. Look at the world right now. It's a hot mess. Why are we doing this? This is stupid. It doesn't make sense. I would argue that this is the whole collective that you guys see in the real world, still pretending like everything's okay. It's a hot mess. And I mean, I'm not saying like, going out and having fun and promoting higher vibrations and things like that. This is the collective that is still playing by the rules of 1990s and the 2000s in the corporate realm and advertising things as if everything's fine and normal. As if the world's not half on fire in some aspect right now. So understand that beneath the surface, that collective is erupting from the inside out. I'm hearing we look younger. So that collective, there is this aspect of childishness, immaturity, emotional immaturity, and childhood regression, or falling back in old petty ways on a public and an outward manner, because they're having a hard time facing their frustrations that are building inside and hiding it in the current environment. This is a collective that's really good at just like hiding it and playing like everything's good. This isn't normal. What we're seeing happen right now is not normal. And pretending like it is feeding authoritarianism. It's feeding oppression. It's for all of us. And I think that that's what this collective is coming to reality. This is like a privileged collective being like, our privilege isn't working anymore. And I'm seeing it, and I don't know how to admit it to myself or take action against it. You're just as much of a pawn as the little people. You're just as much of a pawn as the artists or the poor or the minorities. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think that people are realizing that. I mean, I'm even talking about people who are wealthy. People who are wealthy. This is getting messy. but not in a way, and this is what's been coming through the messages, not in the way you think, not in a way that we need to be fear-mongering and running and like, and like doomsday prepping. But this is, energetically, this is getting messy. So some of you guys are really being called to step into your autonomy right now, stand in your truth, and continue to stand up for what you believe in, and do not fall on the swords of these people or in this collective, because this collective has a lot of healing to do and a lot of deeper work to do, while this collective, the scapegoated collective, or the ones of you who are choosing a different path, you might be working through some of these same breaking down in your mindset, but you're ready for this path. This collective is having a hard time believing that anything outside of corporate America and patriarchal standards. That's what I'm talking. That's the contrast I'm talking about here. Now, you might see it in a different sense in your reality, and this might be a specific person that you're competing with or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, for some of you guys, this might be not that big of a contrast, but from a macrocosm to a microcosmic sense, that's what we're looking at. Deconstruction of organized religions, and deconstruction of the law, and things like that, Constitution, what we're seeing play out right before our eyes. So this panic that some of you guys are sensing here, it might seem undue. Like, why are you throwing your panic at me? Aren't I the group of people, the collective that you threw to the wayside because we don't mean anything and we're not important to society? Aren't we the ones who are poor and weird and outcasted? Why are you pressing on me? Because they're losing money, they're losing opportunities, they're losing control. So what do? They're losing their desire to uphold these standards because they're not benefiting off of them anymore. So what do? You resist. This scapegoated collective, you resist. And you keep pressing on. And just know that you're winning. And I think that's the biggest thing. Archangel Uriel came through in the last message and said, you're winning whether you see it or not. You've already won. Stand in that knowing. And don't let the illusions of the physical world cast this madness onto you and make you lose your grip on who you are and what you've worked for. You're exactly where you need to be right now. Things might feel, there's a lot of ice coming through here from this card, and I know that sounds ironic, right? But I mean, ices and things might feel like they're at a standstill in some way. Things might feel like they're blocked in some way. And snow represents a falling and internal releasing process processing that we're going through internally, right? So the ice might be something, the physical realm, that is stuck or stalled or stopped. How much of that is actually you is what they're wanting me to ask you. If you're sensing that things are stopped or stuck, especially when it comes to money, business, finance, your ability to move forward, how much of that is actually you? Because we still have this fire energy with the sun and the ability to tap into joy and playfulness in the solar plexus and your confidence. This is your forward movement. So this illusion is the contrast that we're experiencing between this collective that is tapping in joy, tapping into the new, tapping into higher frequencies, and what's stuck with the physical world and how it's being called to shift. It's almost like quantum physics saying you can't continue on that trajectory as much as you want to try and force it and go back to 1950 and make that still play out. It won't. It can't. There's too many people who are saying absolutely not. We're not going to go back there. We're not going to do that again. What, are you crazy? And this is the rebellion, this is the revolution, this is the scapegoated collective. You guys are saying, no, we're what? Go back. What is this, Mad Men? You're gonna sell me a fake dream in the midst of the LA fires and the LA protests? You're gonna sell me a dream in the midst of the horrors that we're seeing publicly on national news? Are you crazy? And I think that's how you're looking at some of it. It's almost like neurodivergent versus neurotypical collective. Neurodivergent collective, you can't be manipulated any further because you're like neurotypical collective. Where's the logic? Isn't that what you operate on? Where the hell is the logic in any of this? None of what you're saying makes sense anymore because the world is changing whether you want it to or not. That's where they don't have control anymore. And that's where this collective is being called to see the power that you hold. This is a joke. And it's not a joke. But the way that they're acting is a joke. And that's what's going to come to light. That's what's coming to light. The thing is, we are still in a North Node in Pisces. So everyone is in their own internal process of shifting their perception because of everything shifting that is changing their perception. So some people are experiencing a distorted perception of reality right now because they haven't caught up to what's changing. And others are having a distorted perception because they've never had this much power before when it comes to their ability to create their own reality and make change happen, because everything around them that used to have control is falling apart around them. And there's so much illusion and chaos. Chaos creates illusion. So the chaoses we're seeing right now and the crises and things like that, yes, there is some stuff that is very real for people who are being victim of it, right? But there is so much potential and power in the space around that to use it to aid and to change and to shift. So that's where you're being called to take action, and you gotta come back to yourself to do that. You've gotta come back to your heart space. You've gotta, assuage that inner child that's freaking out a little bit, that because like, whoa, what's going on? You've got to work through regulating that nervous system so you can see things clearly, because it is affecting your vision. It is changing quickly. But trust the unfolding of this. Temperance is your challenge, which means it's going to be a transition. We're going to have to move things back and forth, if not in the physical realm, in our minds, in the way that we feel about things. We've got to work with our feelings. We've got to work with the things that are shifting. It even brings up the Magician card in that way, transmuting, because we've got to literally, we've got these things in front of us. How are we going to shift them? How are we going to work with them? How are we going to use them to our benefit rather than letting them destroy us? That's what this temperance is about. That's what this transition is about. So don't let this collective or these people or these situations destroy you in their own destruction, because that's what's happening. They're going through their own destruction. And it's funny that this is the third message and the final message that I'm doing for this full moon, because it really concludes the issues that I was having with my sinuses in the first reading, which sinuses, when they're building up, it is connected in the spinal cord to selfishness. So there is something here around selfishness that a lot of you guys are stomaching that's not yours. Don't fall down someone else's stairs. Take care. I wish you the best. And happy full mooning this week. Happy releasing, happy shedding, and step into your truth.